Hello, I'm Michael Topham, Technical Writer for Digital Photo, and welcome to this second Masterclass Type Tool video lesson. In the first video, we studied how we could use this type tool to personalize an image, and took a good look around the character palette, as well as exploring and experimenting with some of the text layer styles. This second video will see us concentrate on a slightly more creative way to use text, wrapping it realistically and convincingly around the outside of a golf ball, just as if it was written on the side. To do this, we'll need to warp the text that we create using the bend and vertical distortion sliders, and also use a displacement map, which will make the text seem like it's hugging the contours and ridges of the texture. Towards the end of the video, we'll also show you how we can apply a simple watermark using the type tool. There's no time quite like the present, so let's get this technique underway and learn how to add text over the trickiest folds and contours. To start off then, I'm just going to close down this final image on my screen and then load up the start image golfball.jpg, and you'll find this in the start images folder on the CD. With the image on our screen, we can now load up the channels palette, and to do that we just go up to window in the menu bar and then scroll down to channels, and that will load up the channels palette there, ready for you to use. Move down through your channels palette and highlight the blue channel before hitting Ctrl and A to make a selection around the outside of this channel. To copy the blue channel, we can just go up to Edit in the menu bar and then down to Copy. And once you've done that, just go back across to your channels palette and just reselect the RGB channel, and then just hit Ctrl and D on the keyboard to deselect those marching ants. We now need to create a new document to paste this blue channel into. So just go up to File in the menu bar and then down to New. Make sure under the preset that you've got clipboard selected, and the width should be set to 2828 pixels and the height should be set to 3317 pixels for this example image. Also just check the resolution is set to 240, the color mode is set to grayscale, and the background contents is set to white. Once you've inputted all these values, just make sure they're correct before going up and creating our new document by hitting OK. To paste our blue channel into this new document, we can either go up to Edit in the menu bar and down to Paste, or equally we can just hit the keyboard shortcut for paste, which is Ctrl+V. The next stage involves increasing the contrast, so just go up to Image in the menu bar, down to Adjustments, and then down to Brightness Contrast. Keep the brightness slider set to 0, but increase the contrast value up towards around 25. Just go across and hit OK. The next stage involves blurring this image by going up to Filter and then down to Blur, moving across and selecting Gaussian Blur. Move down to the radius slider at the bottom and set this to a value of 3 pixels before moving up and then hitting OK. So now that we've gone through all the hard work of creating a displacement map, it's very important that we save it in a suitable location. So just go up to File in the menu bar, down to Save As, and then just choose your desktop. Give it a new name. For this example, I've given it a name called Displacement Map, and we want to save it as a Photoshop file, so just make sure under the format there that you've got photoshop.psd selected, and then just click on Save. With our displacement map saved, we'll come back to it and load it up a little bit later on, but now we can just close it down. So just go up and just close this down and go back to your golfball.jpg start image. We're now all done with our channels palette. So just move up to the top right of the channels palette and close it down, before heading back up into the menu bar, clicking on Window, and making sure you can see your Layers palette. The other palette that we also need to see is the Character and Paragraph palette. And just to make sure that we can see that as well, just go up to Window in the menu bar once again, and then go down and click on Character. Moving over to the toolbox, we need to pick out the Type tool before dropping the cursor on the golf ball and then moving up to the Character palette to set up our font and font size. Head into the font family and choose the font Arial Black, and you'll find this near the top of the list. Once you've done that, we can set our font size. But the largest font size that we can choose from the list is 72, and I want a slightly larger size than that. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to select the font size and type in a value of 85 and then just hit enter on the keyboard. Just before we type in our text, we just need to set the anti-aliasing to smooth, and we can also do that inside the character palette as well as up in the options bar. From the options bar we can change it from here, and from the character palette we can change it from here. So just change the anti-aliasing from either none or sharp and make sure you've got it set to smooth. Now's the time to enter the text that you feel is appropriate for the image. So I'm just going to type in the 4-letter word golf and then position that a little bit more centrally. But if you need to zoom in whilst using the type tool, you can do by just hitting the Control and plus on the keyboard. Once you're happy that your text is sitting centrally on the golf ball, just move up to Layer in the menu bar and then scroll down to Type, moving across and selecting Warp Text. We need to change the Warp Text style from None to Fisheye, and then concentrate on the two sliders, the Bend slider and the Vertical Distortion slider. Set a bend value of around plus 56% before moving down and then setting the Vertical Distortion slider to around plus 2%. When you're happy with your warped text, just hit OK to apply the warp. To make sure that our text suits the lighting conditions on this golf ball, we need to change the blending mode of our text layer. So just go into your layers palette and make sure you're selected on your text layer before loading up the list of different blending modes. We need to change the blending mode from normal to overlay. So just select overlay from the list of 25 blending modes. You'll notice straight away how this text is now matching the lighting effect on the golf ball. We're now ready to rasterize our text layer. When we rasterize a text layer, we're in effect turning it from a vector layer into a pixel layer. This means that we can't change the spelling, font or font size once we've rasterized. So any text alterations should be made now. To rasterize our text layer, we just go up to Layer in the menu bar and then down to Rasterize and across and click on Type. Now we're going to apply the displacement map to ensure that our text is hugging the dimpled texture of our golf ball. To do this, we just go up to Filter in the menu bar and then down to Distort before moving across and clicking on Displace. In the Displace dialog box, make sure that the horizontal and vertical scales are both set to 8. Make sure the displacement map is set to Stretch to Fit and the undefined areas is set to Wrap Around. Go up and hit OK. Time to find the file that we made and saved a little earlier. Now I saved my displacement map on my desktop, so I'm just going to scroll through and find it. There it is, displacementmap.psd. Just click on Open and this will actually apply the displacement map onto our text. Let's now take a closer inspection to see what the displacement map has done by zooming into the image a little bit more closely by hitting Ctrl and plus, zooming in to around 200%. By hitting Ctrl Z, it takes a step back in the history to the text before the displacement map was applied. The text looks good and matches the lighting, having changed the blending mode of the layer a little earlier, but doesn't hug the contours of the texture. By hitting Ctrl Z a couple of times shows the displacement map has moved the text very slightly, but now the edges of the text curve in and out of the golf ball dimples. This is more than noticeable by studying this letter O in the word golf. We can see there that the text is running in and out of that textured surface. Let's just zoom out slightly now by hitting Ctrl and minus on the keyboard. If you need to relocate the text after its slight move from adding the displacement map, make sure you're selected on your golf layer before going into the toolbox and picking out the Move tool. You can then just nudge it into position by tapping the cursor keys. The last small step in this technique involves adding an effective watermark using the Type tool and then lowering the opacity of the text layer in the Layers palette. I want to add my watermark to the bottom of this image, so I'm just going to zoom out and then just hold down on the spacebar, which enters the hand tool, just to move down to the bottom of the image. I'll just move these two palettes just over towards the left hand side. Pick out the Type tool again from the toolbox, and then just drop the cursor down towards the bottom right of the image. We can then go back into the character palette and set up the correct font and the font size. To keep the font consistent, I'm going to choose the font Arial Narrow, and then choose a font size of around 30. To add the copyright symbol to our text using a PC, just hold down the Alt key before typing out the numbers 0169 on the number pad. If you're using a laptop like me, you'll need to hold down the Function key as well as the Alt key before tapping out 0169 using the numerical function keys. If you're a Mac user and would like to know how to add that copyright symbol to your text, you can just hold down your Alt key before hitting the letter G. Once you've added the copyright symbol, you can just add the text of your choice. And for this example, I'm just going to type in copyright Michael Topham, and then just position that down towards the bottom right of my image. When you're happy with your copyright message, just click on the layer in the Layers palette, and then to make it a little bit more subtle, we can just reduce the opacity of this text layer. So just go into the Layers palette and reduce it from say 100% down to around 40%. By lowering the opacity, it also gives it an effective translucent look. So now that you have a fantastic understanding of what it takes to add realistic and convincing text to textures, why not experiment with text on a few of your own textured photographs to see how effective displacement maps really can be? You can send any of your fantastic type tool effects to us at dp@bowermedia.co.uk. And of course, don't forget, you can upload any of your successful text images onto photoanswers.co.uk. I hope you've enjoyed both of these masterclass videos that have taken a good look at the Type tool in further depth, and I look forward to seeing you again very soon.